Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Piano Star Masterclass, professional piano lesson for everybody. Brought to you by Piano League. I'm your host, Brian Lin, a professional pianist and a piano teacher. Ever since I graduated from Juilliard a few years ago, making piano education accessible to everybody has been one of my main goals. And that's why I created this series, the Piano Star Masterclass. Professional piano lessons for everybody. During the live stream, you can ask us any questions in the chat and we will do our best to answer them. You can also sign up to be a performing student regardless of your age or level. Piano Star is all about giving piano students virtual performing opportunities. Besides the masterclass, we also have the Piano Star Showcase, an hour-long virtual concert for young pianists aged 7 to 12. So if you have a kid or a student within that age range and you want to give them a chance to perform, be sure to check that out as well. Application deadlines are April 17th. Links are in the description of this video. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my guest today. She is a concert pianist as well as a private piano teacher. She has performed in the United States, Canada, Germany, Panama, and South Africa. She has made concert appearances in venues like Carnegie Hall, Chicago Culture Center, and Kennedy Center. More importantly, she's a friend of mine. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Korean-American pianist Sherry Kim. Hi, Sherry. How are you this morning?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course. I'm really excited about this.
All right, so just before we begin, I just want to tell our audience a little bit of what's going to happen today. So for the first 30 minutes until 11 a.m. or so, we're going to talk about our topic, obviously. It's the top 3 beginner books of the 21st century. And then, top 3 method book, I'm sorry. And then after that, we'll have an hour of masterclass where we'll have 3 lovely students, lovely performing students, and you will give a masterclass for everybody. So I just wanted to let our audience know. All right. So my first, I guess, question for you, Sherry, is that you teach in New York City right now, right?
Yes.
How many students do you teach right now?
I have about 23 students, I believe, currently teaching. I know it's been weird with the current situation. So right now I'm teaching virtually, but it's over 20 students at this point.
Oh, okay. So of those 23 students, how many would you say are beginner students or students who are still on the method books?
Yes, I have about a third to a half of my students in their first year of piano lessons. So they're still working through method books right now.
Great. So, so many of them. So it seems like you have a lot of experience in beginner books. Why, in your opinion, do you think choosing the right method book is important? Like, why can't say everybody just start with the same book?
Right. Each method book that's out there in the market is designed with a certain kind of student in mind. Some beginner books are designed for really young students, like ages 3 or 4 or 5. There are other method books that are designed for older students. Sometimes they're called older beginner, which is targeted for ages 7, 8, or 9 or above. There are even adult beginner books for adult students. So it really depends on who your student is and the best way that they can learn. Some students prefer to, stick with maybe a traditional route of learning staff notes and other basic techniques. And other students might need a little bit more practice using the rote method, which is playing by sound and by demonstration. So it really depends on what kind of student you have and trying to meet their needs.
I see. So you've been telling me about some new beginner books that you've been really excited about and you recently discovered too. So why don't we just jump right in and can you share with me some of those books?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So I specifically picked these books because, well, one, they are quite new in the market. And I say new because it's not like books that we grew up with personally, like in the 90s or in the 80s or something like that. These are books that were all published after 2010. So I've only discovered them just by chance, whether it was like maybe I saw another peer working on these books with their students, or I just stumbled upon it on YouTube somehow. So these 3 books that I'm about to share with you are just my personal favorites. There's no like scientific data that prove that these are the best ones. And
right, you didn't do a scientific research on them.
No,
you didn't poll like 1,000 people on it. But
it's just my students and my
right, and it's from your expertise, and it's from your experience, right? Yes. Okay.
I know I still have a lot to learn and a lot to grow, especially since I know there are many other teachers who have been in this profession for way longer than I have. But I'm very excited to share with you what I discovered and what I have been using with my students and why it's working.
Sure.
So this book here, this is called the Alfred Premier Piano Course. Alfred has its own set of method books from that we know of, and it's the Alfred Basic Piano Library. This is the newest version of that, and it's created by the top American pedagogues like Dennis Alexander, Martha Meyer, and so on. And I would say of the 3 that I'm sharing today, this is the most traditional route. So if you're used to using Faber or Hall Leonard or any of the other more traditional method books out there, this is an easy transition. It is pretty similar, but why I like this book over the other books out there right now are for various reasons. One of them is that some of the pieces here are detracting away from having kids play in one single position. And what I mean by that is that a lot of method books in previous times would start out pieces where C equates middle thumb, your thumb. And what happens is when students get used to that and they find a piece where you don't actually start with your thumb on middle C, the kids are just like mind blown and super confused because they've only learned it one way. But this book has many pieces where you don't start with your thumb on middle C. Sometimes you have to start your second finger on middle C, or maybe you'll start somewhere else on the keyboard. And so I find that to be very helpful to kind of break that like single
the five finger position, so that you don't really so that kids learn to read the notes better instead of just C equals 1, right?
Exactly.
right.
I mean, it does start off with 5 fingers. You're not going to be going crazy scale passages in the beginning, but you're not going to just start on that same note for every single piece. And the other reason why I really like this book is because of the teacher accompaniment part. It is beautiful. It is different than what you hear with the other books out there. And I actually really enjoy playing these parts with my students. Whoever designed them was very creative with the chord harmonies. It's not your traditional harmonies. A lot of it is very jazzy, popular, and it's a lot of fun to play with the students. And the students love them. So I think this is a very easy book to transition to if you are trying to venture off into new types of books.
Right. So just a follow up on that. You talked about the teacher accompaniments. Do you do that with the students every lesson?
Pretty much. I mean, I think it's a treat for these students. A lot of these students practice, on their own. I know there are like CD accompaniment parts that they could use, but not everyone has access to playing that, and it's also not the same as playing with a live person. So it's a treat when I tell my students, if you're able to play this piece from beginning to end without stopping, then you get to play with me.
Right.
And they often like that a lot. So.
I've always found in my own teaching too that when I play a duet with them, it shows them how important rhythm is, how important it is to keep up and to listen. If they're just doing playing solo, then they get overwhelmed with they get focused on just the notes and nothing else. So yes, that's a very good point. All right, keep going.
Yep. So this is a book that I recently discovered last year, actually, although this book has been out for a while. Now, I'm holding up the second book in the series because I actually gave away the first book to one of my students.
What a good teacher.
The first book is actually horizontal, like the other book that I showed you. But this is called Tales of a Musical Journey, and it's by a really popular pedagogue named Irina Gorin. She is quite big in the pedagogy world right now, as she is giving talks and master classes and workshops about her products all over the world. She herself is a Russian American, so this book actually is like the friendlier, more like Americanized version of this book. Oh. This is a very familiar book for those who grew up in Russia, the Russian School of Piano Playing.
Right. A lot of teachers mentioned that book.
Yes. But if you open it, it's not very appealing to the American student audience. There's no pictures. It's, black and white. The font is really small. But all that to say, I still do enjoy teaching out of this book, and I do use this book. But when I have students who are as young as 4 or 5 years old, they want something a little bit more colorful like this. There's pictures and there's bigger fonts, and they break it down in a more friendly way. And what I really like about this book is that it's in the form of a chapter book. So, and it says at the very bottom right here, for young pianists, their teachers, and parents. So it's important that the parents are involved in the process of working with their child. And you can see even from here, it'll say chapter 1, and these are the characters in the book, and then it's basically like a fairy tale.
So it's sort of like a storybook almost.
It is, and it gets students really into this world of music in a really fun and imaginative way. Gets them really excited, and there are even like little props that Irina sells on her website that you can have along. It's really cute. But what I also like is that she takes this book. A lot of the pieces in this book actually are in her own method book here, but of course, the sizing and the font is all different. And she breaks it down so basically to like it moves slower than the traditional book, which is great for students who might need a little bit of help like processing concepts. Like I would recommend this book to someone who moves quite quickly, someone who's bright and gets things much faster. This is for someone who's more reluctant to start piano, but this is a great way to sell it because it's fun and exciting.
So it sounds right. Sounds like the second book is for younger demographic, people who are younger or people who I guess struggles with piano practice a little bit. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think the majority of my students tend to be that, although it doesn't have to be that way. I know that some older students also enjoy going through this as well. Okay. But just for my own students, it seems like, those who are 4 or 5 year olds really love starting with this, and parents would agree too.
Okay. Sure. So after the first book of that book, since you said it moves a little slower than usual, what do you learn after completing the first book of that? Roughly. So
you learn to find A, B, C, D, E, F, G on the staff, and I'm just talking about the middle of the staff, like starting from like middle C and like a few notes above and a few notes below. You also learn how you learn basic rhythm, so like your quarter notes, your half notes, dotted half notes, etc. Basically, what a staff looks like: treble clef, bass clef, what a measure is, double bar line, repeat sign. That's pretty much it. And the pieces are quite small still.
Mm-hmm. And do you get to? Sorry, keep going. Were you? Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. Yeah. I was just gonna say this book, the second book, ventures off into like slurs and staccatos and more notes on the staff.
Gotcha. And it also has songs in them, right? It you can also are there teacher accompaniments in them as well, or not really?
So these don't really have teacher accompaniments, but
Okay.
The book comes with a CD,
Oh.
which you could play back, and I believe you could access the sound clips on her website. So if you don't have a CD player, you could just go to that website and use the sound file from there. But
Gotcha. When you when you mentioned that, reminded me of a question that I was going to ask you. You're not affiliated with any of these books, are you? You're not getting paid to recommend them. All right. So
Nope.
so for our audience out there, for our listeners or watchers, this is completely from the heart of Sherry. These are good books. So just wanted to put it out there. All right.
Definitely.
So right. So that was the second book. What about the third one? Yeah.
So the third one is called Little Gems for Piano, and there are different volumes based on different levels, and it's by a pedagogue named Paula Dreyer. This book actually, if you see right here, you can't really see it, but it says Companion to Tales of a Musical Journey by Irina Gorin. So they kind of go along. I wouldn't say this is necessarily a method book. Like you don't really learn the basics like you do with the other two that I mentioned, but it's a great alternative route or supplementary pieces of music. This book is mostly about playing pieces by rote, although they do have it all printed out. They notated everything out here. It's just easier to play by demonstration and by listening.
So let's elaborate on that a little bit. You said that it's notated already. How then do they teach you by rote? Does it? Does the teacher play first, or how does it work?
Yes. So the book actually outlines specifically kind of like the steps that you should take, like a recommended steps. And the first step is for the teacher just to play the piece from beginning to end as it sounds, so that the student knows what they're going to be playing. Then the next step is to ask questions to the student about what are some like repetitive patterns that they notice. And when they are able to detect those patterns, you show them those patterns, and you work on it on the piano and have them repeat those patterns, and you do this multiple times until they feel confident about it. Then you add other parts, and usually the patterns are very similar to one another, so it's not like you have to keep learning from scratch. You kind of build upon the first pattern.
Gotcha.
And once they have a whole piece on which a lot of students can kind of put together within the same lesson, you could also play the teacher's part, which they have here as well. But what I also like about this book is that not only do students gain experience by listening and by playing by ear, but they also have a lot of detailed description on, like, it says like at the bottom, like, did you notice this, or creative suggestions for this. They also tell you to focus on technique that has been outlined in the Tales of a Musical Journey. Like if you're playing things smoothly or with slurs, how are you using your wrist? How are you lifting? How are you breathing? They actually mention stuff like that too. So technique is not non-existent. It actually is a very much part of this book.
Okay. Yeah. Right. I just want to remind our audience that you can ask questions in the chat anytime you want, and we will try our best to answer them throughout, even during the masterclass section. And also, since one of the books that you mentioned, actually one of our masterclass students today will actually be playing from one of the books. So that would be something that student is playing at around 11:40. So for those of you who are interested in seeing this put into practice. So you mentioned that these books all do different things to students. What progress or what kind of difference have you seen in your students after you switched them on these books compared to other books?
Well, one I would like to mention is just the teacher's sanity. I mean, as a teacher with many students, it can get very boring if you assign the same book to the same student for years and years and years. I mean, I can only handle playing the same pieces for so many times. So it's part of it is also for like, you know, making sure that the teacher has breadth, you know, being able to experience different types of books and different types of pieces with different types of students. But for my students personally, I found that they think about music a different way because of these books. Especially this one here, the Tales of a Musical Journey. A lot of times I find that they are really immersed into that storyline, which is perfect for when you are just starting piano and when you're that young. And it is actually motivating to practice more, especially because there is an expectation that parents should be involved. Parents are reading the story with them. They are, they're really committed, more committed, I think, than I've seen my students in previous years. And even with the Premier Piano course, although that is very similar to maybe other method books out there, I find that students are enjoying these pieces a lot. And of course, like as what I mentioned before about the, you know, playing in different positions, I don't have any issues with my students not being able to start in different positions, which is good because you know, I have certain transfer students who are still working over getting over that single position, and it is very hard to like break that habit. So I'm trying my best to make sure that that doesn't happen to any of my students.
Gotcha. So let's say I am a beginner. I'm a piano student, beginner, and I started on one of these books. At what point do you think it's time for me to move on from method books? What, you know, is it a specific time frame, or is it, you know, by the time you get to a specific book? How do you decide when one leaves the method books and go into the real world, per se?
Yes. So when you see a lot of introductory classical pieces, you have to assess what they already include. Like, are you playing hands together most of the time? Or do you have to know slurs and staccatos at this point? Most of the time, yes. How wide are the notes going on the staff? Like, how high does it go? How low does it go? When you assess that and see where your student is at in their method book, you have to see if making that jump is too far of a jump, or if it's just right. So I think that's one factor to think about. But another thing is that it really depends on the student's like willingness and readiness to move on. Because as we know, classical music is a lot more complicated than most other genres, which will require more practicing and more commitment. So if the student is willing to practice more and, you know, they actually enjoy listening to classical music, then maybe making that switch earlier on is not going to be a big deal. But if there's students who are more reluctant about practicing, and you can try, you know, sending them like one introductory classical piece and see how they handle it. A lot of times you just kind of learn by trial and error with your students, right?
Gotcha.
So yeah, I just feel like if they're more reluctant, then maybe I'll keep them on with the method books, because a lot of these method books have multiple levels and you can go on and on and on with these books. Right. So it really depends on the student.
So from your experience on average, how long do you think, I know this is a very, very generic question, but how long do you tend to see them spend on these method books on average? Let's say half a year, 1 year, 2 years. What's a rough time frame? Assuming that you're practicing like a normal, like regularly. If you're practicing, let's say half an hour a day or so, what has been your experience?
I think the average turning point into introductory classical pieces would be about a year or two.
Okay.
Year if they're more on the faster side, and 2 years if they're, you know, a little bit more on the slower side. I do have, you know, exceptions. You know, I have students who switch over in like 6 months or students who stay on method books for a really long time because they really don't practice as much as they should. So there are outlier cases, but I'd say 1 to 2 years is about the norm.
Gotcha. So let's just summarize a little bit, okay? So in a method book, in any kind of method book, what do you think are the most important qualities of a method book that stands itself from the other method book? And from those qualities, how does one decide for themselves which method book they should use?
Yes, I think some of the qualities that a teacher should look for is like just creativity. If there's a particular way or a method that is introduced, I would just look into that just because while what we know from growing up is not always the best way. I think pedagogues are always developing new ways to introduce concepts to students. So I would look into like how concepts are introduced. The other thing is I would recommend looking into like what exactly is your focus. If your focus is technique, then I would recommend something like this book because they really introduce firm fingertips or wrist movements in this book. Or if your main goal is to just get to be able to read music quickly and more fluently, then something like this has a lot of pieces in it. You could be using something like that. And honestly, if you know what you're doing as a teacher, you could possibly even combine, method books. You could kind of pick and choose what you like and almost kind of create your own curriculum at that point.
Right. I've always told my students and my friends that it's almost really less about the books and more about the teacher and how you teach them. So the books are a great tool for you to use and to implement to complement your teaching. But after at the end, it's the teacher that feeds the information to the students.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
Yes.
Right. All right. So, one last question: are any of those books good for adult students? Do you think?
Yeah, I think probably Tales of a Musical Journey is too slow and maybe too childish for an adult, in my opinion. But Little Gems for a Piano, their pieces are designed in mind for students to play beautiful recital pieces. It says right here, recital and rote pieces. So a lot of the times when you play in a recital, you hear the same pieces over and over again, but these pieces are, kind of like a new age style, beautiful, like movie type of soundtrack style of music. It's really beautiful. And I think that adults will really enjoy learning from this book because it doesn't sound childish. It feels like a masterpiece. Like it's appropriate for their age and their level and their interest.
Gotcha. So for our adult audience out there, start with the Little Gem. All right. So I think it's about time. It's 11 a.m. and we're almost we're ready. I think our first student is in the waiting room of our meeting already. So are you ready, Sherry, to start the masterclass portion of this?
Yes, definitely. Right. I can't wait to meet the students.
All right, cool. So we have first up, let me just show you guys the picture of our first student. So we have Daniel from Jersey City, and we will let him in once I figure this out. All right. So Daniel is connecting into the meeting. Once he's in, we will. There you go. Hi, Daniel. Hi. Our first performer, Daniel. And all All right, Sherry, why don't you take it over?
Sounds good. Hi, Daniel. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. Are you ready to play for me?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. So why don't you go ahead and maybe we'll run through your piece like it's a performance, and then we'll work on it together. Okay? Wow, that was awesome. Great job. All right. So just to start off, do you know what an arabesque is?
No.
Now, it's a kind of a complicated word, right? So arabesque, do you know what ballet is, right? Ballet dancers, like they wear those nice pink tutus. Well, they're, if you think about like the Nutcracker Suite, these are dancers who, they stand on their tippy toes and they dance around very lightly. Arabesque is a dance position in ballet where they one leg is pointing down and the other leg is stretched out. And basically, you have to kind of imagine that when you're playing this piece, all these movements, like them dancing and jumping around, actually. So while I really loved all your fast fingers and how they're moving, I think what would make this even better is if you can play lighter, like a ballerina, right? Like a ballerina dancing and jumping around. That's what this piece is all about. That's why it's called arabesque. So how do we achieve that lightness? Right now, I noticed that when you're pressing the keys, and my camera's a little bit far, so I'll show you right here. Right now, our first joint seems like it's bending a lot right now, which is going to make things more mushier. So if I play the piano with flat fingers, it sounds like I'm kind of like mashing everything. But I want it to be crispy and short. Right? Do you see how that's different? Listen one more time. That's when I play with flat fingers and it's more mushed. This is when I round my fingertips and play lighter. You hear the difference? It's a little bit different, right? So we're trying to aim for lightness because we're trying to imitate that ballerina position. So how do we do that? Well, first, I want you to try this, okay? I want you to kind of hold your fingertips really tightly like this. Yeah. And then I want you to kind of like knock, 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 knock with your other hand. Try your other hand.
Knock.
Yeah, with your other hand, I want you to take your pointer finger and see if you can go knock, 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 knock. Can you do that? Yeah. See, this part has to be really, really tough here, but watch this. Oops. Right? We don't want it to bend like that. So we're going to take strong fingertips here. Try the third finger. Can the third finger also be really, really strong here? You feel that? Nice. Okay. Now try the fourth finger. Can the fourth finger be strong? Good. Very, very good. So when you're playing on the piano, we're going to be playing on the fingertips. Actually, you don't want to play on the flat part. Okay, that's where it gets all mushy. You want to play just on the fingertip where this guy doesn't bend. You don't want this to happen. So you know how you see slurs? What's a slur again? Do you know what a slur is? Have you learned that?
Like something like this.
Yeah. The lines where it connects from one note or series of notes. What is that? What do you do when you see a slur? Do you know?
First, soft and loud.
That's dynamics. That's like piano and forte. That's like crescendo. When you see those lines, in my music, it looks like this, but probably your music is similar. These lines here, when you see a slur, you want to play smoothly, right? Smooth and connected. Like you don't want to play like that, right? You did the right thing. You connected everything and you played smooth. But we're gonna do a quick experiment. Okay, this is not how you play at a recital, but as practice, we're gonna actually try to play staccato. Okay, when you play staccato, it's gonna sound like this. And maybe you can't really, yeah, so let me explain to you how we're gonna play short, okay? Because I think when we normally play staccato, we jump up like this, right? We lift our entire hand. Well, we're not actually gonna do that. We're gonna keep our hand near the keys. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of like pick at the note, pick, like you're kind of like scratching yourself, pick, bum, 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 bum. So just these guys are moving, okay? Dun, 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 dun. But this is not moving. Okay, so if you look at me one more time. You see how I'm not doing this? Can you try that for me? Let's see what happens. That's pretty good. Try to kind of like, can you do this with your fingers? Right. You're just moving these guys. Little guys, right? You're not going to move your whole hand. Just these guys at the front. Bum, 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 bum. That's pretty good. More backwards like this. Try this motion. Yeah, keep your hand steady and you're just moving your fingertips. That's all. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So let's try the whole 4 measures like this. I know there's no dynamics or anything like that, but we're just focusing on making those guys pop, 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 pop. Yeah, it's kind of different, right? Way different from what you were doing. But if you keep practicing this separately, then when you kind of go faster and you keep that same mindset, see, I'm going super fast now and it sounds like I'm doing a slur, but actually I'm still pop, 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 pop. I'm not mushing any of those keys. That's how we're going to achieve that lightness. So let's just do this. Let's do 5 different speeds. So we're going to do super slow. Try that. You're still kind of going upwards. Can you just isolate these little fingers? Like you're scratching the keys. Yeah, and try to do it really quickly. Bum, bum. Nice. Okay, let's try a little bit faster. Faster movements, right in the middle, and then try that. A little bit faster. Pretty good. Okay, so at the end, we're gonna, that's when we leap. That's when the ballerina goes whoop into the air. So we're gonna do our little finger thing. Exactly. Right, so we're gonna let go and leap into the air. Let's try that. Keep going. Da, 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 da. Oh, it's kind of sound a little mushy. Separate those. So remember, it's not about pushing. It's about kind of like swiping, like scratching, right? Only move the tip. That's pretty good. Let's try that one more time. Good. That's pretty good. So use that wrist. Right. So actually you should hear like a tiny bit of a space in between each 16th note, just a tiny bit. So that when you play fast, it sounds super crispy and it doesn't sound mushy. That's kind of what we want. How about we try the left hand? You know where the left hand begins right here? Let's go super slow. And remember, we're gonna just pluck, like imagine you're plucking like string. Like that's pretty good. Try the next one. Good. And the next one. Oh, your left hand's really good. Very good. Okay, so now we're gonna use our wrist again, remember? So we're gonna go lift. There's like one note that was kind of mushy, right? Oh, that's pretty good. Next one. Good. Try a little bit faster, but separate each note. Okay, good. How about you go on? Can you try this one? The C sharp? A little mushy. Can you yeah, pluck the string. Stay close to the keys. Don't jump around too much. I'm still touching the keys. Good. Next one. Separate these guys. Mushy. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Good. So this practice, if you do it enough times, you'll start to get the hang of it. I don't expect anyone to understand how to do this overnight. So, but you did a really, really good job for your first try. And of course, you're not going to be just doing staccato when you're playing for real, right? It's kind of like an illusion, right? Like you're pretending to do staccato, but then people actually hear it connected. So when you go fast, it sounds smooth, but in reality, I'm just plucking every single finger. That's how we're going to get super, super light, okay? So the last thing that I want to mention is kind of phrasing this from the beginning of this measure all the way to up here. Can you tell me which direction are we going? Are we going up the keys or are we going down?
Up.
We're going up, right? And each time we're going higher and higher. So I think we should do something different about our dynamics, right? Should we go louder or should we go softer? What do you think? Louder. So the first one is piano, very light, very light. Yep, so that's level 1. And then level 2 is a little bit louder. And even louder. Oh, well, I think we skipped 1, right? Can you go back and do that one more time? Yes, 1, 2. The last one is the loudest one. You're actually doing the ending, but that's okay. We can do the ending too. That was pretty good. Let me hear you start super, super small, so soft. Can you try softer? Yeah, when you play soft, you can't go to the bottom of the key. That's too heavy, right? So stay kind of like it's splashing on the surface of the water. You're just getting, yep, just the surface. This is too deep. Yeah. Yep, and then try to go a little bit louder for the next one. Remember to move it each finger, pluck each finger. And get louder. Can you get louder for the next one? And then, oh, let's try that one again. Really dig into the keys. Yeah, so when you're trying to make loud sounds or soft sounds, it depends on how deep you go into the keys. If you go very deep and you play with a lot of, speed, then it's going to be forte. It's going to be really loud. But if you don't go all the way down and you just stay on the surface, then you're going to be playing very lightly there. Does that make sense? Very good. How about we try the left hand now? So the left hand chords, do you think they're more important than the right hand right now? Or do you think they're less important? The left hand.
Left hand.
Yeah, left hand. Is the left hand more important than the right hand? What do you think? Do you think this is the melody? No, this is boring. These are just chords, right? Because they're not so important, we want to make that left hand as soft as possible. Okay, so that means, remember what I said? Don't go so deep, don't push it so hard, but just on the surface. Try that. Yeah, it's kind of fluffy. It's like a poof, like a cloud, right? Poof, poof. This is too heavy. That's too much. That's good. So then when you play both hands, you have to notice the balance. How is your left hand doing when your right hand is playing the melody? Is your left hand competing with the right hand? Or is your left hand underneath the right hand? Try from the very beginning now. So start from here and then keep it quiet. I like that. The balance was so much better. And now I can actually hear the melody very clearly. That was good. Can you do the whole entire like A section? The first like 8 measures or so, or 9, 10 measures? That's good. So there's one little tiny detail. Do you notice in the first ending, there is something that says SF? Do you see that SF? You don't have it? I think maybe just my score has it. This guy right here. Do you have that?
No.
No? Okay. Well, you might have some sort of maybe accents or some sort of other marking. Generally, when you play that note, it's a really strong note. It's kind of like a suddenly like an alarm clock just went off, right? That's the chord I'm looking for right there. So it's very powerful. You see in the score right there? Yeah, that SF stands for forzando. Forzando, complicated word, right? Just think of super forte. It's extra loud. It's extra powerful. So we need to make sure that that comes out very clearly. Yeah, so suddenly what? Can you try that? Start like, yeah. Oh, I see a staccato. Dum, let go, dum, bum, and then suddenly, oh, even more. With your whole body. Yeah, it's supposed to wake you up. Like you're about to fall asleep because it's so light and soft, and suddenly, whoa, and then you go back, right? It's supposed to be alarming. It's not supposed to be pretty. So try that one more time. Yeah, can you start from here? Yeah, let go, nothing. And then you can go. Yes, Very good. I like the motion too. Very good. So remember that that's a special moment. That doesn't really happen in many other places in this piece. Okay. So today we really talked about how to play lightly with our fingertips. So just the first part of your finger needs to move. Okay. Nothing else moves. This whole hand doesn't move, just this part. So I would like for you to explore that when you're practicing. Of course, consult with your teacher if that's the appropriate method or not. And then think about the balance. Think about when you're, if one hand is not playing the melody. So like, for example, when you play this part, well, I guess that's different because the right hand has kind of a sub melody there. But definitely when you play chords, that's not super important. So you want to keep it as light as possible there. Okay. Overall, very good playing. It was so awesome to meet you, Daniel. And thank you for being a part of this and for playing today. Okay. I hope to see you soon one day. All
Great
right.
job. Great job, Daniel. Great job. All right. So that was Daniel. So we have our next performing student ready in the waiting room. Let me just pull up her picture. And Daniel, you can leave the meeting whenever you want. Great job. All right. Yep. Right. Let me try this. All right. So next up we have Margaret. All right. Let me just put her in. It's hard to navigate this thing. All right. There we go.
All right.
So Margaret is connecting to audio right now, and soon we should see her video on as well. Let's just wait a second. That was quite good. That was we learned a lot about how to really pay attention to the first knuckle and making sure that the fingers are strong. I find that a lot of kids have trouble holding on. Yeah, just supporting in general, with their fingers.
Yeah.
And playing legato with staccato, I think that was very, very helpful. All right, so Margaret, you can turn on your video whenever you want to, and also your audio. All right. So let's see.
Okay.
There we go. All right.
Hi. Good to see you. All right.
All right.
So, Margaret, do you want to just play through your piece for me, and then we'll talk about it afterwards? You made it. Great job. And you know what? The most important thing is that you kept going no matter what. That's a really important part of performing, no matter what happens. And you know what? Everyone makes mistakes, right? Even me, maybe even Brian and everyone else. Everyone makes mistakes. It's all about how ninja you are, how you can just pretend that those mistakes never happened. So you kept going. And you know what? I bet you a bunch of people listening don't even know, where you ended up actually making mistakes. Okay, not everyone knows this piece. Some people do. Teachers will know, but not everyone does. So you should not feel so stressed or so nervous about that. I'm just glad that you made it through all the way, and it was actually a really wonderful performance. A lot of strong moments that you had. So let's talk about a few things to make this piece even better. I think in terms of like wrong notes and mistakes, you already know, right? You kind of know what those are. So we're not going to spend too much time focusing on that. I want to focus on something that is a little bit different, but it will make your piece sound even better. So one thing I want to mention is in the first measure, right? We know that the right hand is the melody, right? The right hand plays which you played very beautifully. Now I want to actually shift your focus to the left hand. The left hand is, you're thinking, wait, what's the big deal? Left hand is not important. Actually, it's a little bit more important than you might think, because look at your music. Your left hand has a staccato in the first beat. The second beat has an accent, which is slurred to this, and then staccato, accent, and then slurred here. It's a quite complicated left hand if you just take it apart, right? A lot of people, not just you, like many students, will just play the left hand like whatever, just. But it would actually make this piece so much more interesting if we actually did what the music says. The music says staccato here, accent, smooth, up, down. So actually, when composers place an accent on the second beat or the fourth beat, the second and fourth beat are weak beats. So we got a syncopation going on here, right? We're not used to kind of hearing accents come in those places. So here's what I want you to do, Margaret. I want you to play just the left hand for the first 4 measures. And I want you to try following what the score says. So staccato, accent. And when you play accent, let's actually show that more visibly with your body by leaning in, smooth up, lean, and then lean out. Can you try that? Oh, beautiful. Wonderful. So as you may or may not know, when you play slurs, there's a lot of things you got to do when you play slurs. When you play a slur, what do you know? What should you do? Do you play staccato? Do you play short?
No.
No. What do you do when you play a slur? It's kind of hard to think about it.
I don't know how to explain it.
So what's the opposite of short? Long, smooth, right? Smooth. So when you see a slur, not only do you have to play smooth, but you have to actually get softer at the end of the slurs. I wouldn't say this is true for 100% of the time, but most of the time, you actually want to do a diminuendo. So when you get to the end, it's the quietest. Can you just do this part? Accent, and then diminuendo. Yeah, can you do even more of a diminuendo? It's okay, you can look at the music. It's accent, Last note quiet. Better, okay? So you lean in, and you know what's gonna help with the diminuendo is if you lean out. Relax. And then lean in again, and then lean back out. Try that again. Yeah, get quiet at the end. Get quieter, even quieter. Good. So when you put it all together, good. When you put it all together, you got to think about not just your right hand, but also your left hand. See, now it's a little bit more interesting because left hand has something to say. Let's try both hands, see what happens. That's pretty good. Keep going for the next like 4 measure, all the way to here. So keep going. Go. Good, good. Excellent. Yeah, so let's stop here. 1 sec. Yeah, very good, Margaret. That's good, Margaret. Right, that was awesome. So when you, there's another place where we're gonna have to kind of lean in and lean out. And look at this measure. Do you see those SF forzados in your music? I was just talking to the last student about this, but SF is forzando, which an easier way to put it is super forte. So more emphasis, more power on this. But in order to show me that, I want you to use your body to show me that. So lean in, down, up, down, up, down, up. And this is super light. So heavy, light, heavy, light. Try it. That was good. Yeah, so when you play the whole thing, down, down. Okay, one more time. I think you could do a little bit more. I think you could do a little bit more. So more, a little bit more. Go into the piano. That's good. Nice. Great. Good, good. So let's move on. Okay, so why don't we actually go to measure 35. So now it's when this part comes back. That part. Can we skip to that part? This is measure 35, I believe. You see it? So the same thing, right? So, same thing. That was good. So this is the same thing where you kind of lean in. Whenever you see those accents, we gotta show a little bit more. Oh, that's the other one. I feel like that one could be better. The D minor. Lean in. A little bit more. A little bit more. You can start there. was good. Okay. So then when you go on to the next part, let's continue. But then when you reach this part, down, 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 up, down, up, more of this. So we're basically tackling all these emphasized notes today, like accents or sforzandos. We want to put more weight, more emphasis. And I think the best way to show that is not just with your fingers, but with your body, with your arms, and kind of gets everything involved. It's more special. So let's continue. Check your left hand. Check your left hand. C to B. Now you gotta check. Now you gotta check your right hand. Almost. That's pretty good. Can you go back, Margaret? Could you go back to here? Just start a little bit before that. Okay, right there. Remember those sforzandos? Lean out, heavy, like, right? Show me with your body that you mean it. Other way. I think the left hand starts with this. Can you start from here again? Just start from there again, a little bit, like one measure back. Do you see when you play C and E, your left hand is playing C. And also, when you finish the slur, there's a staccato. So down, up, nice and short, up. Okay, so do the same place. Up, down, up, down, up. So I need to hear the staccatos as well. Oops. How about you just do the right hand? Okay, Margaret. How about you just do the right hand? Can you just show me the right hand only? So we're just gonna go down, up, down, up. We're only gonna do that much. Just right hand. That's pretty good. A little bit more. I know there's more in you. Lean and make it super heavy, like someone's leaning on you. Lean into the note. Down, up, down, up. That's pretty good. So when you put it all together, and you'll work on it in your own time, I want you to remember up, down, up, down, up. Then you can go on to the next part. So can you continue here? Like all the way high up. Oh, higher. So right there where you just ended. Right there. So the next part, left hand has a sforzando. It's another sforzando. So we're gonna lean in, lean out. Heavy. Right, left hand is one octave higher. Yeah. And that's a nice staccato. Wait, staccato. So there's a lot of places where it ends with the staccato. Yep. So heavy and quiet. One more time. Good. I want to hear more of a diminuendo. So get softer at the end. Good. So then the next one, you do the same thing. So this is the first. More. Up. More. So focus on the left hand. The left hand is where those forzandos are or accents are happening. So to that, exactly. But get softer. So only one of them is heavy. This one is heavy. Then light, super light. It's easy to play. Quiet. So heavy. Okay. You're playing both of them heavy. You're doing this one loud, and then that one is also loud, but only one of them is loud. So loud. I can't hear it. Stop it. Yeah, now it's getting better. So listen for the end of the slur. You want to get softer. So try that for me one more time, starting from here. Lean in and lean out. Keep going all the way to the end. Yep, and then keep going all the way to the end. Finish the piece. Nice, much better. Great. So today we really focus a lot on how to play those accents or sforzandos, right? It's like a full body commitment. It's not just your fingers, but your whole body has to be involved. Almost like you're dancing in a sense, right? And then we learned how to treat the end of the slur. The end of the slur has to get softer at the end. They cannot stay loud. So if you think about those two things, I think your piece is going to be like 5 times, 10 times better. Okay? But wonderful playing, Margaret. It was so fun working with you. And I wish you the best of luck, okay? All right. Bye.
All right. Good job, Margaret. And wonderful. We all learned that playing piano isn't just the fingers, it's the whole body. And it takes a lot of concentration and focus throughout the piece to control every part of your body. All right. So thank you again, Margaret. Great job. And we will introduce our next performer. All right. So there we go. Stop video. There we go. All right. So our next up is a little one. His name is Logan. And let me just show you guys his picture. There. That's Logan. And I will let him in. Just one sec. Where is he? There we go. Admit. All right. So Logan, welcome, and please unmute yourself and your video, and turn on your video. There we go. Hi, Logan. All right, I think his video. All right, there we go. There we go. All right, Sherry.
All right, Logan, nice to meet you. I hear that you have several pieces prepared for us. So which piece do you want to start with first? Sure. Can you play it through for me? So we're gonna run through the piece like you're gonna perform it, and then we'll talk about it after. Okay? Go for it. Keep going, you can do it. Yay, that's it. Great job. No matter what happens, you just keep going, and I know you're going to figure it out because you're smart. That was a wonderful performance. I really enjoyed how steady you were. Your rhythm is like solid, and your notes, right? This is already a fantastic performance, and I'm wondering if we can make it this much better, a little bit better. So what's missing? I say, you got all the right notes, you already have all the right rhythms. What else could there be? What do you think? Is that it? Is that all there is about music? There must be something, right? Well, that something is your spirit, your energy, right? You know the song pretty well, right? When the Saints Go Marching In. Have you ever sang the song before? Yeah? Well, this song is a very popular song when it comes to like parades, marching bands, which is why it sounds like a march, right? And that's what they're singing the song about. So what I would like for you is just more energy, more sound. So right now, I'm gonna pretend to be you, okay? This is you. You see, I'm playing all the right notes, right? And that's what you did. But look at what happens when we add energy. Right? There's so much more. It's more fun now, more exciting, right? I want to see if I could wake you up and make you become louder, more fun, and more excited about this piece. Want to try the beginning again for me? You don't have to play the whole thing. Maybe just the first 2 lines. Want to try it one more time?
What? First to what?
Can you play from the beginning again and play with more sound and more energy? So instead of sounding like regular Logan, can you play like you are really excited about this piece? I think you can do it. Just try. Just see what happens. So play louder. Louder would help you, right? And with more energy.
First to what?
From the beginning. So play stronger. Very strong. That's pretty good. Good, Logan. How about even more forte, even louder? Could you make it even louder? Think about you are an entire marching band with trumpets and horns and drums, right? You got to pretend you're everyone right now. You got to give me so much energy, and we're like marching and cheering, right? Show me that. I know you have it somewhere in you. Even more. Oh, nice. That was, I can already tell your energy has changed. Before, you were just playing the notes. But now I feel like you're playing with more of the marching band in mind. So when you're playing any piece of music, think about the title, look at the picture, that you see the picture in your book. Think about what kind of music this is. It's not a lullaby, right? I'm not going to fall asleep to this music, right? Right? So you need to have a lot of power and energy so that I'm awake and I can have fun in the parade. That's what we want. And I think that if you have that, this piece will be even better than before. Okay, because you play all the right notes and right rhythm, but we're missing the most important part of music, which is your imagination. Think about what this piece actually means. Okay, so why don't we move on to another piece? Do you have another piece you want to share with me? Okay, go for it. So play through the whole piece. Wow, that's another amazing performance. Again, playing all the right notes and all the right rhythms. You're really good at this. Definitely keep it up. So the one thing that I think could also make this piece even better is if you, again, like what I mentioned before, we think about what this piece is actually about, right? What is a sombrero? You don't know? Look at the picture. What do you think that picture looks like? It's a hat. It's a traditional Mexican hat, actually. And you know, you see the words, right? Have you ever read the lyrics before? Have you read it before? My mother won't let me buy a sombrero. She says she does not have enough dinero. It's kind of a funny song. But where the words are not showing is actually where we need to bring out more. So for example, this is good. Now this part. Look at your music. The left hand, it doesn't have any words, but you know what I think would be the words if there were words? I think it's cha, 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 right? Like maybe you're shaking, like one of those shakers, cha, 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 or something like this. Cha, cha, cha. Kind of funny, right? It's like there are musicians in the background and they have all these other instruments. Your right hand is a singer. He or she is singing the song, but there's someone in the background with shakers. Ta, 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 ta. So we're going to try to imitate that shaker. Okay, and I want you to play those guys. You see those dots on the you see those dots above your C's? Look at the music. Look at the music. Yeah, do you see how there are staccatos? I want them extra sharp. When you make them extra sharp, then I think it's going to sound more like cha, cha, cha. Okay, so let's try from the beginning. We're not going to play the whole thing, maybe just the first page. And I want to see if your left hand could bring out the staccatos a little bit more. Good, and that one doesn't have staccatos, right? So and even if you continue to the next page, there's a lot of these staccatos, and now I can see your hand bouncing a little bit more. Before, your staccatos were a little dull, a little boring, right? A little flat, but now has more energy. So I think in general for you, don't just settle for playing all the right notes and all the right rhythms, but I would like to see more energy in your playing, right? Because then people can actually start thinking about what this piece is about, right? When I listen to my sombrero, I want to have fun, like we're in a party, like a fiesta. But I don't want to be falling asleep in my sombrero, right? Those staccatos will make me excited again because it's very bouncy and very jumpy. So if you continue that throughout the entire piece, then it'll be a lot more fun to listen to. Okay, I like this a lot. Do you want to just run through the first page one more time for me and try those really bouncy staccatos? Oh, I think we're a little bit too low. There you go. That was good. Now I really feel like you mean it when you play those staccatos. It sounds so much better. It might be a really tiny difference, and you might just think, oh, what's the big deal? But it's a huge deal for someone who's listening to you. It sounds so much more exciting now, Logan, and I really like it. So keep up the good work. It seems like you are like breezing through this book, which is amazing. Just I hope that in the future, when you learn your other pieces, think about what that piece means and try to play like what it's supposed to be. If it's supposed to be a soft, pretty lullaby piece, then play very gentle. Or if it's a really fun piece, then show me your energy, more energy than the normal Logan. Okay? So keep it up. It was so fun hearing you, and I hope we could cross paths one day in the future. I'll see you again, okay? Bye.
Right. All right. Good job, Logan. That was a wonderful performance. And thank you so much for sharing your music with us. So we will. And with that, that was the last performer of our show. And you worked hard for the past past hour.
It was so fun, though. I loved it.
that was quite that I learned a lot from watching your lessons, and I'm sure our audience too. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Thank you for having me here.
Spending the time with us. All right.
Yes,
so.
thank you.
And for those of you who don't know, Sherry will also be a star judge for our showcase. That's going to be an hour-long virtual concert that's going to happen on May 1st. And Sherry and I, along with some other people, some other professional pianists. We will be reviewing the applications and picking and choosing the performers. So I look forward to that, and I look forward to working with you on that as well.
Definitely.
With that, I think that concludes today's thing. Yeah?
Yay.
Yay, we have fun.
Yay.
All right. Thank you again, Sherry.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See you,
Bye.
everybody.